So welcome everybody. I do see some coaches still trickling in, and we will go ahead and get started tonight. So welcome to one of many of our first LEGO League webinar series that we've been holding since this summer. So tonight we're going to talk about how to prepare for a remote tournament. And our webinar agenda tonight, we'll do really quick introductions and a couple of housekeeping points. We'll go over some quick reminders and resources. Then we'll jump into what everybody is really here for, and that is what will a remote tournament look like. We'll start first with just some general guidelines. Then we'll take a deeper dive into what remote judging will look like, what remote robot game will look like, and what remote activities and awards will look like. And then at the end, we'll just kind of sum everything up and just to give you a couple pointers into how to prepare your team, your first LEGO League Challenge team, for a remote event. So introductions, I am Caitlin Olnitsky. You've probably gotten lots of emails from me. I'm the Assistant Director of Virginia, DC First LEGO League. On the call, we also have Karen Berger, who you may or may not have gotten lots of emails from as well. She's the Regional Tournament Coordinator. We also have Scott Rakestraw. He's our Regional Judge Advisor. And not listed is on the call tonight is also Martin Scher. He helps us out a lot with a lot of different events, and especially Robot Game. And then joining us later on the call tonight, hopefully, will be Steve Scher. He is our Regional Head Ref and Decider in Chief of all game-related questions. So quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded. So if you have to jump off for any reason or you want to send this to your assistant coach or somebody else on your team, you will be able to do that. We will have some points in the session to take questions. So please be putting that in either the chat box or the Q&A. When you're using the Q&A, if you could address it to all panelists, that would be really helpful. I right now cannot see the Q&A, but Karen is going to help me moderate that. But we will take a lot of breaks because we know this is a completely new experience to all of us, and we want to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. So before we jump in, I just wanted to say a really big thank you. I know that everybody on this call here is a volunteer, and that means a lot, especially with everything going on. So thank you so much for your willingness to invest not only your time, but your energy into creating these experiences for kids despite everything going on around us. Thank you for pushing your team to attend an event and celebrate their work. That's a big part of getting these kids into these STEM communities. So thank you for doing that. And then thank you for just encouraging the next generation of thinkers and innovators, problem solvers, collaborators. I think we see now more than ever, we need them more than ever in the future. So thank you so much for being a part of that. And my really quick note before we start to jump into everything, I used to be a middle school teacher for 10 years, and one of the quotes I took away from that, from one of my favorite principals, was this quote of reject the tyranny of or and embrace the genius of and. Right now, I know we're wondering, it's either stay safe or, come together in Robot Game or do Robot Game in person or not do it at all. And so I really want us throughout this call tonight and the information we're about to present to you is think about that and how can we still have these meaningful experiences for kids and keep everybody safe, our volunteers in our community. So thank you for an open mind. And for some of you who have been with First LEGO League for a long time, things are going to look different this tournament season. And so I just want to remind everybody before we jump in is this idea of one thing that I think makes our organization so different is gracious professionalism. It's competition for the sake. It's competition for the sake of not destroying one another. Competition for the sake of destroying one another, but for the sake of bettering and improving the competitors as a result of the competition. And just a shout out to Denise Carroll from Prince William County, who was a Woody Flowers Award recipient. Everything that we do, even though this won't be the perfect setup in terms of competition, we would love to be together. We would love to all be in a room. Our core values is really what's going to get us through this season and on to so many more awesome seasons. So with that, one really big announcement, everything we talk about tonight is already posted on our website. So if you go to va-dcfll.org, you will see this game changer graphic. It'll link you directly to our tournament guidelines. You'll find everything that we talk about here tonight. You'll find rubrics. You'll find the recordings to this webinar will be posted there. Anything we talk about, you'll be able to find here. and we'll be keeping that up to date over the next couple weeks. And I'm going to turn this reminder over to our regional tournament coordinator, Karen Berger.
Hey, hello everyone. This is just a reminder to everyone on this call and any other coaches you might know that the tournament registration process needs to be completed by midnight on December 10th. So that's this Thursday. You need to go into your team manager account. If you haven't already created one, you'll need to actually create an account, and down at the bottom, you'll see what it actually looks like down there. That must be completed by December 10th because we will be locking the system after that point so that we can start doing team assignments. So make sure that you have all of your team members entered and that they have the correct information, especially birthdays and most importantly, grades this year. Additionally, event payment should be made by December 10th. If, however, there's going to be an issue with that, especially I know some folks who deal with POs, it takes a little while to process them. Just go ahead and email questions at VA+DC/FLL.org and let folks know what's going on, and we can certainly work with you on that. And then we hope to have assignments posted by December 15th. Maybe a little bit before that, and they will be posted both on our website and actually also in your team manager account. You will also be able to see where each of your teams is assigned. This year is a little bit different with your assignments in that you are selecting only a tournament date. We have a little bit of flexibility with a lot of our tournaments this year because we are in a remote environment. So you will be selecting a date and then we will be assigning you to a tournament. I did just see a question pop up about getting parents to sign up their children. So there are actually two different registration systems that we're looking at here. One of them is through FIRST, and that's the First Inspires one. That is the one where you need to get parents to add the children and sign the consent and release form. The other one is the one here that we have listed with the team manager. .va-dc/FLL.org. That one, the coach can do it entirely. The parents do not have to sign off on anything for this one. This is only the one that we use for tournament assignments. So coaches should be able to do that one entirely themselves.
Yeah, and one note I would make too, if you're in your team manager account, definitely take a look. You should be able to see these two symbols, but we only have 2 days left. So if you're seeing this symbol down here, that means you need to get your team members entered so you can actually put in your tournament preferences. So make sure that you're seeing these two things here, and do give us about 24 hours to update your payment. So if you were to pay online right now, you would expect to see that reflected within the next 24 hours, but this is the most important thing to be looking for. Make sure you have those double check marks. Go ahead, Karen.
Yep. So just some general guidelines. In order to register in our system for a regional tournament, the team must be registered with FIRST. We haven't had a lot of issue with that this year, but just kind of giving you that heads up. Teams consist of at least 2 coaches and between 2 and 10 team members. The team members should be between 9 and 14 years old. We can, so officially they need to be 9. We can, as a state, approve younger team members. So if that's the case, just reach out to questions or directly to Caitlin, and she can take care of what you need to do for that. Before your remote event, you will need to have the youth registration. That is that one that you need to get the parents to approve. So that's the one that the question and answer was actually asking about. But that just needs to be completed before the event. It does not need to be completed before you register for a regional tournament right now. You'll need to set up your remote event hub account. You'll get an invitation for that after you've been assigned to a tournament. So you don't need to do anything for that right now. Those invitations have not come out yet. And then you'll submit some teamwork and some team information, and we'll be going through what kind of information you'll be submitting today. So that's part of what we're going to talk about. During that event, your teams will be virtually meeting with the judges for a 25-minute consolidated judging session. Again, it will be fully remote, so you don't need to actually physically go anywhere for it. You'll be receiving your robot game scores throughout the day, and then we will still have a virtual opening and a virtual closing ceremony, just like we would have at a regular event. After the remote event, we either will be mailing your team your participation ribbons and, if applicable, trophies, or for some groups, we may actually be able to set up local areas that we can deliver those to folks. And then you'll also be receiving your game scores and your judging rubrics, just like you would get at a regular tournament. Instead of picking them up at the end, they'll actually be emailed to you at the end.
So I wanted to talk really quickly about youth registration. In the past, you have always been able to register your teams through the First Inspireds account. So like Karen said, there's 2 different systems, and this should look pretty familiar to you if you're a coach, because in order to be on this call, you probably have a registered team, so you probably know what that dashboard looks like. So because events are happening online and we can't be with you in person and we can't collect those forms in person, youth registration is really important because there are some laws surrounding minors and being on the internet and things like that. So this is a really, really important step this year. So essentially what will happen is coaches will invite the parents and guardians to the First portal. And that's a really simple process. It's actually just this button right here. When you invite contacts, you probably invited a lead coach too. Maybe you were invited by a team admin. But if you scroll to the bottom of that page, you're going to see and invite contacts at the bottom. You're going to be able to invite them using their email address. And so then they can go on and accept that invitation. They can complete the process on a computer, a tablet, or a phone. I know in past years, the being able to get onto the website on a phone has been terrible. That is something that First has worked on a lot over the summer to try to make it a little bit easier for some of our guardians and parents to be able to give that permission. So parents and guardians can actually just go register their child without you inviting them as well. They would just need the team member, but that team member would be listed as pending until you accept them onto your team. So if you have some really excited parents and they have the team member, they can go ahead and set that up themselves, and then it would just be listed as pending, and then you would approve it. But I will say this: remember that image I talked about, this nice, pretty graphic right here that's on the front page. If you link to that on our tournament guidelines, we not only have really nice PDF directions for coaches, but we also have directions for parents and guardians that you can send to them, including those cell phone directions that I talked about. But we always know that there's exceptions to every case. So if you do need the Spanish version or some other translated version, right now I do have access to the Spanish version. If you're looking for some other translated version for a parent or guardian, please just reach out directly to me. Also, if you're really struggling to get your parents, I know that every team is going to be different, but if you're really struggling to get parents and guardians to complete that, please reach out to me as soon as possible so we can make a new plan. It's really important this year that as we ask volunteers and team members to meet in these virtual rooms, that we have the proper permissions and that we're all being taken care of. But like I said, you can find lots of great resources on our website by clicking on that graphic over to our tournament guidelines page. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Karen.
Okay. So this is just kind of a general schedule. And again, we're going to talk about the details and what each of these things means as we go through the presentation today. But just kind of in the big picture, up across the top is kind of the stuff that you're going to do getting ready for an event. So right now we are registering for remote events. You should have hopefully already created a team manager account. You can continue creating those through December 10th. You need to submit your tournament preferences by December 10th, and then we will have tournament assignments posted by December 15th. Then we start getting into the actual competition season. So prior to competition, you will have the opportunity to submit a robot practice match. Right now, we are looking at submitting those 17 days before your event. I know that seems like a really long time before your event, but the reason we want it that early is, first of all, our head referees have other jobs and families and everything like that. So it gives them a couple days to go through the rounds and get comments put together so that they can get those comments back to you guys. But more importantly, we want to make sure that you guys have sufficient time to also make any changes that you want to make. So we don't want to hand these back to you a day before you need to turn it back into us with official matches. So this will hopefully give you about a week that you'll have to have your team make any changes that they might want to make. It's not required, but we are highly, highly, highly recommending that all teams do a practice match. First of all, it's an opportunity for us to help you guys catch if there are any rules or missions you misunderstood. It's also an opportunity for us to look at how the match is being videotaped to make sure that it's a good way for the referees to actually be able to see everything. Then we'll get into the qualifying tournaments. Approximately 5 days before your tournament, but the submissions will open actually about 10 days before your tournament. You'll need to submit 3 robot game rounds videotaped, your project videotaped, any kind of robot design materials, team information, and a team picture. And again, we'll talk about each of those things in more detail as we go through today. During the tournament itself, we'll actually do a judging session with the teams where we'll do the project robot signing core values, and we'll have that opening and closing ceremony, and hopefully some virtual activities. We're working on some other fun stuff to do throughout the day. And then for the teams that are moving on to the championship tournament, it will be a very similar timeline. So you'll be submitting that same information, certainly updated if you would like, 5 days before the event, and then judging the day of, and then opening and closing.
Yep.
First has been working very diligently on trying to get a remote hub put together. So we are going to be inviting coaches to participate in that remote hub, but it won't be until at least probably about 2 weeks after we make assignments. So what you're going to find out, if you kind of do the math on that, is it's going to be right around the new year. We'll be actually sending out those invites, and that's because it's going to take us some time once assignments are made to actually get all of the teams into the system. But that remote event hub is where you'll find all of your schedules. You'll submit your team work through that. You'll also have the ability to message key volunteers, and then hopefully participate in some fun activities throughout the day as well.
So at this point, we've gone over just some general guidelines. Karen, are you seeing any other questions that we can tackle now?
Yeah, so the next question on there is actually about how the team's presentation will need to be done. I think we'll hold off on that question until we get in the judging session, because I have a feeling some of that will be answered in the judging discussion here. There was a question about needing to register the team members in firstinspires.org. You will need to have your team members registered through there, because that's where we will make sure that we have those consent and release forms for all of the team members. So that does need to be taken care of. But again, that is more of it needs to be done before the tournament. It does not need to be done necessarily by Thursday night.
Karen, there's also a question in chat asking how you do that.
In terms of how to do it, I'm going to actually defer that back to Caitlin.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take it back here for just a second. So on your First Inspires dashboard, you should see your team here. This is just an Explore Test Team snapshot. But this is where you've ordered your product, and this is where you've put in all your information. So there's an Invite Contacts button here. And then that'll take you to your team contacts page, where at the top you can invite contacts. And then what I might also do is I see that team that's having that question. So if this doesn't answer your question, please just reach out to me at ilnitsk@jmu.edu, and I can get you those directions. But there are really nice screenshots of the entire process on our website. Again, if you just go to VA+DC.org, you'll see this picture right on our homepage, and it'll take you over to where you can find that. I still see that person, Team Mojo Dojo, is having issues, so I'm going to connect with you off the webinar tonight and get you the resources that you need. So, but we'll go ahead and keep moving on, but don't worry, I will get back to that person at the end of the webinar tonight. So, any other questions, Marty or Karen, that we're seeing?
So the other question I'm seeing there is, will there also be a state and national tournament after the qualifying and regional tournaments? So our qualifying tournaments are what we would normally call our regionals, and what's kind of called the regional championship on there is what is our state championship. Technically, it's a championship tournament because we're both Virginia and DC. So we will be having both of those events in our system as normal. It'll just be that they'll be remote instead of in person. The format of the international championships is, I think, still a little bit to be determined at this point. So I can't really speak to what the final answer is going to be on those.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a better answer. Basically, right now, what we know about the national, the first championship, normally it happens at the end of April into May. It has been pushed back to summer. We in the field have been told to not expect some answers on that until early spring. So we may not know it going in exactly what advancements will look like, but we'll be communicating with teams along the way once we know things as well. So everything's changing. So we're just, along for the ride. So at this point, we are going to we're going to dive a little bit more into remote judging. So I'm going to bring Scott Rakestraw, our head judge advisor, on to talk about what remote judging will look like for our season this year.
Okay. There's actually a lot of different, hi everyone. There are actually a few different changes other than being remote. Is this year we also have the concept of consolidated judging, which has happened if we would have been in person, but now we get to experience it with remote. So it's going to be it's very similar to the past, but it's going to be a little different. I think as teams, you'll like it a lot better. And I think as tournaments will also like it a lot better too. So the key thing is 5 days before the event, you need to submit your project presentation. Caitlin will give you those instructions and so forth on how to submit that. The key things, it has to be 5 minutes. That includes introductions and anything else that you want to do. Judges will actually watch that video prior to you coming into the virtual room on the day of the tournament. The robot game match, to give the robot design judges a little perspective of your robot, we'd like for you to submit one of your matches. You can choose which one you want to submit for that, or we can choose which one. Caitlin can provide guidance on how that will work logistically as we get more information into the tournament portal. And then we would love to see a one-page of a piece of code that you would like to talk about. And it's key that the kids are talking about this, not the adults and the coaches. So that's one of the key things. Before the meetings, we're going to queue you in a virtual room. Judges will review the materials right before you come in. So they're going to have different questions, and then it's going to follow the same process. So in that room, you're going to have 25 minutes. That's going to be for project, robot design, and core values. So historically, those have been broken out into individual rooms. Now everything's going to happen at one in front of the same set of judges. We will continue to use the rubrics, and the rubrics have changed this year. We'll go through those in a few minutes. And the big difference is not only will you receive electronic feedback after the via the rubrics, there's also going to be a verbal feedback as part of being in the virtual room. So this is the structure for consolidated judging. So in this case, we're going to have reviewed your project before the team enters the virtual room. Team enters, there's a team's welcome. You can do introductions. Make sure you have fun with that. That's where you can show some of your energy. Then we're going to go right into a Q&A about your project. And so we're basically going to be looking at the rubric to see what did you not cover in the video you submitted, and we're going to ask questions around that. Then we're going into robot design. Keep in mind that we would have watched a robot round, so your goal here is to, and we'll get into more detail on this in a few slides, but is to give us an overview of your robot and also your design process that you went through. So you'll have 5 minutes to do that. You can have a formal presentation, or we can make that a Q&A session. After that session, we're going right into a Q&A about robot. The explanation and Q&A can be blended based on your experience of your team. And then for core values, we've actually been watching core values throughout the entire judging session. So this is going to be an opportunity for judges, core values judges, to ask questions related to things you may not have covered or we may not have witnessed as part of the room to make sure that we're judging you fairly. And then after that, the judges are going to have a 5-minute feedback where they're going to give you verbal feedback on the team and say, hey, this is what you did great. These are some things you might want to work on, or did you consider this? So this is a very different way. So versus just getting a sheet of paper at the end historically, now we're actually going to be providing verbal feedback. Caitlin, did I miss anything you think is important there?
Oh, no, you got it. I just I didn't have my mouse over to advance for you, but you were on it.
So this is the project rubric. Again, the rubrics have been simplified dramatically. And so basically, when a team goes into a room and we watch your project video, the judges are actually trying to check box all this. And to keep in mind, they're trying to do that in a 5-minute session, so it's not always going to be perfect. But this is where, if you look at your project outline and what you're trying to cover, is this is exactly what the judges are looking like. So if there's something you don't mention and we don't see it, we will try to ask a question. But when you look at how many items we have to cover, we may not get to everything. So we really want to put the emphasis on the team to make sure that you are covering the items highlighted in the rubric, and you can see what defines beginning versus accomplish and exceeds. The key thing is on this, you'll also get feedback on what was a great job and things to think about. We want to try to keep things very positive. Again, we'll pre-watch the video, so we'll know that coming in, and that will help us pre-fill out the rubric. Most of your questions for project this year, since we'll have a little bit of time, are going to be centered on things that you didn't cover in the rubric or things that the judges want to explore more with the team. So the video, don't get too caught up in trying to do commercial or production quality stuff. We don't care. You can give me a Zoom video with the sound's not that, we won't get sound, but the quality of your video is not going to be something we consider in the judging process. We're truly following the rubric, not the production design of your video. What's important here is the kids do the work and the kids present it. And it cannot be any longer than 5 minutes. The adults can be in the back, but the main thing is this is about the kids doing it. The tips and tricks, use the rubric. Like we said, that's how we judge everything. You can write a script, and what we're looking for is we like to see participation from the entire team, not just 1 or 2 people dominating the whole thing. So the more we see everyone participating, the better that's going to play out. And the key thing in it with COVID, this is challenging, but try to present out to someone in your community. So that way we want you to share what you're learning in your project, because we're excited about it. We want you to be excited about it, and we want you to share it. Sharing's a big part of that. And I think the big thing is have fun with this. Don't look at it as, hey, I mean, we've seen everything from TV skits to game shows to puppet shows, anything. You can be extremely creative in how you present this. But again, your production quality, we don't care about. What we care more about is your content. Robot design. Again, we're going to watch one of your robot rounds that you submit to kind of get a sense of how the robot performs and what it does. We'll ask some very specific questions about how you tackle that. Again, the rubric is your guide. Always follow the rubric for how your team will be judged. And so anything as you do your robot summary and walk us through your robot, if you look here, if you follow this almost as an outline for your presentation, the teams know how to talk about this. This is what we're looking for. This is what the questions are going to be centered around. Please have your robot available so you can pick it up and point to it. I would suggest always following the 2-hand rule, especially on the video thing, and probably designating one person to do that, or maybe a couple people, but we don't. Make sure what we don't want to have is create an opportunity for someone to drop a robot because kids are excited and they get that way. So I would definitely practice that. We've seen it happen. We know it will happen if we're not careful. So just make sure the teams, I call it the kitty cat rule, hold the robot like you're holding a kitty cat. That seems to work well with teams. And even though teams, you don't have to have a formal presentation, but the key thing is you can have bullet points that you want to cover and you want to talk about. The key thing here is follow the rubric. The rubric is everything that we're looking for. One thing, you don't have to go back, but the other thing too is we will ask about programs. So that sample program you provide, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. So, and again, what's important here is for the kids to do the work. Proportional line following is great for older, but just keep in mind, we're looking for the kids to do the work here and be able to talk about and explain how they got there, talk about the design process, how they tackled, how they learned how to do certain things. So we're going to dive deep into programming. Core values, again, we're following core values throughout the entire judging process. Also, we'll explore core values outside, like inside the tournament, but based on like what some of the robot design judges may, or what some of the referees may see, may end up making it back. So always be on that best behavior, even during robot game, even though we're all virtual this year. Again, follows the rubric. It's very easy to understand. It's been dramatically simplified. And then you'll still have the opportunity, if you want to create a post or something to kind of talk about your core values, that's going to be fine too. Again, you're going to have a limited time here, and we're really going to be focused more on the Q&A about that.
Can anybody on the call hear me? It looks like we may have had some technical issues.
For some of us.
Okay. All right. I think we're all back now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Sorry about everybody. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So the key thing we'll hear is like, hey, I'm a really shy kid. They didn't want to answer questions. Typically, that's because you have one child, like a couple kids that are very over anxious about answering every question. So make sure you just practice that. Not everyone, like that's spreading like the talking stick model, and make sure everyone has a chance to participate, because we will be looking for that. And we're assuming there's going to be technical difficulties somewhere along the way. This is the first time we've done this. Your team will not be penalized for technical difficulties. Let me just put that out there now. We would do our best to make sure that it is level and fair. But this is a new experience for us, just like it is for you. And we're going to provide almost even a help desk models and some other models as you do have stuff. But don't stress about that. That's the last thing you should be stressed about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, yes.
Can you mention which conferencing platform we'll be using for our tournaments?
So we are actually, that is a great question, Steve. Right now we have Zoom set up and ready to go. The only thing that would change that at this point, first is working on having an integrated video teleconferencing platform. So if that is ready by the time we are going to be launching, then perhaps if it's going to be a better system. But right now we are set up with an institutional license to use Zoom. That's a great question, Steve. Another question I saw directed totally at me, that was directed to me, but about judging. The teams do not have to be in the same location. We know we have teams in all different sorts of scenarios. So if your team is having to come, if students are spread out in different homes and they're all meeting in a virtual room, that's okay. We know we do have some teams of families where it's literally 2 team members in a family who live together and they might be in the same room. Regardless of how you're going to be coming to this event, that will not be held against you. So just know that we've got teams in all different kinds of situations. So we're ready for it. So Karen, do we?
Yes, we do have questions.
All right, so let's get into some remote judging questions.
Okay, so will the remote judging sessions be recorded? Will we be able to watch it again later?
That's a platform question for Caitlin, I believe.
So right now I'm looking at the what I'm able to do with that. There is a lot of legality in terms of the content that's put into the platform and what I'm allowed to take out and what I'm allowed to do with it. My goal would be, and again, I'm still working on this, with that teams would be able to see it, because in a typical in-person event, you would be able to film your team. So that way you could use it later on to kind of assess how you were doing. We will not be posting them publicly for people to see. That will definitely not be happening. But my goal is to make it so again, looking at what I can do with the platform, that I would be able to send the lead coach a recording of their project presentation, but it will not be posted publicly. It'll always remain private. We're still working on the details of that. That is an excellent question.
Okay, next question. Does our presentation visual have to be a board like normal, or can we have like a Google Slides or PowerPoint?
So you have 5 minutes to do that. If you want to present something, we're looking more for it to be a team participation, just like in a normal tournament. But given everyone's remote and everything's a little different this year, we're going to have flexibility. I will tell you, the more fun you make it, the more entertaining you make it, that may play better in a lot of cases versus a boring presentation that we all have to watch all the time on Zoom. So I would look at how you get creative here versus just how you get technical.
Okay, since the presentation is submitted as video, the team will start the explanation of their project as soon as the team welcome is done, and that's a question.
Yeah, your video can only be 5 minutes. So if you want to squeeze in a welcome and you can still get your presentation done in that 5 minutes, that's great. If you do an intro and that's going to cause your project presentation run over 5 minutes, I would skip the intro.
I think the question was actually about during the active call.
During the active call, you'll have a chance to kind of do an introduction. We'll make that fun.
But after the introduction, you just slide immediately into Q&A about the project?
Correct.
Yeah, and the reason why we did that, we have had some other regions do some test events, and they found when they were trying to stream the video for everyone to watch at the same time, there was a lot of technical issues. So by learning from regions that have already tried to do some of this, they found that it was better for the judges to check the video out before bringing the team in the room, so that way they had less technical errors in terms of trying to be able to stream that. So just so you know, a little thought process behind that. So Karen, another question?
Okay, if as part of our presentation we have a physical model and we have an adult that we wanted to try out the model and give their honest feedback, would that be okay?
I would prefer to have the kids present it to the judges. That would be the ruling there.
But I assume, prior to the competition, as they're just testing things out, they could get adult feedback from it.
They can, and they can share that in their 5-minute presentation, or that may come up in Q&A.
And then we already talked about, is it recommended for the kids to be together at one location or join separately from home? And that is completely up to the teams. Either way is fine. The presentation video, can we record it where each team member is a different location, or does the team need to be together? Again, we've already kind of talked about that each team is going to be in a different situation, and whatever your team needs to do, we will work with that. And then we will be, there was a question about, are we sharing this recording of this meeting and the information on this meeting? And the answer is yes, it will be posted on the website. And then we had a chat, will there be a challenge during the core values portion of judging?
Yet to be determined. Most likely not, but we're still trying to figure that out.
So one question I did see, so the project presentation, so basically the project presentation is the question is, so the project presentation will be recorded while the robot design is done over the call. It's still live. Essentially, anything that you submit to the judges, they will check out before teams come in the room. So that way they have some ideas of what they're looking at. So that means they would watch the project video, they would check out the robot run, and they'll be able to talk about that during the call. So the students will still have some time to talk about the robot design, but they will have seen one of their robot runs beforehand. And I did get some feedback on platforms. So thank you for that. I'll definitely take a look at that. And then the other one I have, the remote consolidated judging slide shows 2 minutes. And this is the slide they were referencing, I think, here. This one right here. So it shows 2 minutes for team welcome. Would this be the time for team introductions, and 5 minutes of project judging begins after that? Yes, correct. So you have that correct. And
then the last question I have here is, if the kids have designed a website, what is the best way to share that?
They can, we'll have to, I think, when they submit stuff, we may give you an opportunity to put some stuff you want us to look at. I will tell you the judges will focus on what your presentation video is. We don't have a lot of time to look at external content.
Yeah.
And regarding the core values challenge, what makes that challenging is whether we have all team members together, whether they're all separate. So that's what's going to make that a little tricky. So I'm going to tell you it's going to be a surprise.
And then there is one more chat, and I'm going to go ahead and take this one because it's more about registration. If we select tournament preferences this week, but later decide that we're not ready and need to back out, is that okay? Officially, yeah, we can't force anybody to participate in a tournament, but I would strongly recommend you guys not to back out. I think most experienced coaches in normal tournament circumstances will agree that you never quite feel like you're ready, but you often find out you're just as ready as everybody else was. So if you're really worried about stuff, feel free to reach out to one of us, and we can kind of talk to you about what's going on, what might help out, before you just decide not to attend a tournament. But of course, we can't force anybody to attend a tournament.
Yeah.
And the other thing I should mention is that we do sort of build these expecting that some people will not show up for a tournament. It's not going to collapse the tournament if you don't show up. So, that's not the end of the world. Yeah. Okay.
In some cases, it can not be a good thing. But please reach out to us before you decide to just not attend because you think you're not ready.
Yeah. So at this point, I do see some other questions coming in, and I am going to be taking up all their questions and saving everything at the end. So if we don't get to your question right away, please expect an email from me tomorrow following up with that. But I do want to make sure that we have ample time to talk about robot game. So thank you, Scott, for sharing that, and thank you, everyone, for helping moderate questions. And at this point, we do have Steve Scher on the call with us, so I'm going to turn it over to Steve Scher.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for joining us tonight on the webinar. For the remote judging of the robot game, we're going to ask you to submit videos of your team running the robot in a 2.5-minute match. So we're going to offer to you a practice round, and we're going to time that to submitting that about 2.5 weeks before your event, say 17 days. And the reason is that gives us time to review it, get comments back to you, and then that gives you a week or more to work on things if you want to on your robot before you have to submit your final rounds. So we're not trying to push anything. Teams may not be done with stuff, but it'll give you a chance to show what you have so far, give us a chance to give you feedback on what your video looks like and what we'd like to see out of it, and so on. So that's what our practice round is going to be like. Then for the official robot game matches, we're going to ask you to submit 3 robot game videos to be scored. And then on the day of the event, the referees and I will be going through each of those robot game matches and scoring them. And those scores will get posted to the leaderboard throughout the day as they get looked at. So for videography, we got some suggestions. You don't need a tripod or even a real camera. Smartphone cameras are working quite well right now in comparison to other cameras I've had. You will want lots of light and minimal shadows if you can have. You want to ask your videographer to aim so as to avoid things being hidden or unclear, and to zoom out far enough so that we can see most of the playing surface and nothing important is being cut off. But opportunity for doing close-ups as needed for small details, mostly probably after the match end time. But before and during the match, you'll just want to pan and move slowly, show the inspection, and then move the camera around as needed and kind of pick a location to watch from. During the match, keep the camera still, aimed and zoomed, and just keep your camera recording in a continuous flow. That's what we want to see. No cuts, no editing. Okay, we want to see a single unedited video of the match. before, during, and afterwards. If you want to do a dance after it's all done, that's fine, but don't, as we say, give us a continuous video. And you can avoid faces, that's fine. If it's not possible, then that's okay. But for use protection and privacy purposes, the fewer faces we have going around, the better. Thanks. So here's what we're going to ask you to be doing on your video. Before the match, just pan over the entire field setup, including home, and give us a verbal timestamp saying it's January 25th at 2 p.m. and we are the Talking Turkeys. Okay. And then for mission 00, which is the inspection, go ahead and show us your robot and equipment spread out and sitting still in one of the two inspection areas in home, either the small inspection area, which we recommend since it's worth points, or the large inspection area. Point out your motors, showing us you don't have more than 4. And as with inspections, you can use your hands to hold things in as you stack things up. And if you have a ruler handy to show the height is under 12 inches, that's much appreciated. Do you show us your innovation project model, assuming you've built one, which you should, and you can tell us what it's about. Then during the match, we want the camera to show the whole field and all of home. So normally that's done from the west wall, and we don't have to see the penalty or the token area for the penalty tokens, and we may not need to see the northwest corner of the screen if nothing's going on there. But otherwise, we want to see all of home. We want to see all of the models. Okay, and just hold your camera there. If you have a tripod, great. Otherwise, most you've seen the kinds of recordings you can make, and you know that you can usually hold the camera in a good position for that amount of time. Thanks. So when choosing a view, think about what's going to get in the way of the camera. So the technicians will usually stand and walk next to home in the south border wall. So we don't want to aim from too far on the south. Okay. Think like a referee. If detailed or confusing things happen near home, then we want a view from the northwest so that the referee is going to be able to see what's going on at home. The robot spends most of its time in the east, from the northeast. I probably should have edited that. Anyway, you could go from direct north if you want to. You'll probably have to pan a little bit or move a long way away from the field. We've seen examples of teams in some virtual tournaments, remote tournaments, where they mounted the camera up above the field, which is a really great view for a referee, but it's hard on you guys. So we don't recommend that for your purposes. Okay, and there'll be some written directions and probably some illustrations available for you on the Virginia DC website, as well as I think First is posting some as well. In our gray box here, I want to remind you that there are 2 missions that have the robot ending position at the ending time of the match as a kind of a critical thing. So we want to be able to make sure that we can see whether the robot's hanging from the pull-up bar or dancing over the dance floor at that time when the match ends. And we talked about some of the other bullets here. Don't stand on something that's going to move on you or collapse on you. That's a safety hazard and it will ruin your video. So one thing that's nice actually for the referees is if you can put a timer in your view field. And that could be a tablet or a phone that's just got a countdown timer on it, or a count up timer on it for that matter, stopwatch. And that's helpful for us being able to know what time you guys see. But we'll be timing on our end as well, from when you do your countdown to when it's stop time. Okay? Remember, we're still only going to allow 2 technicians at the field at once, but you are allowed to trade in and out if you have enough technicians on site. We do want you to provide a verbal countdown. 3, 2, 1 Lego is very popular for all of us. That's a good one. It can be 1, 2, 3 go if you want to. And then as the robot performs, we're happy to hear your play-by-play narration if you want to do that. That's something you can do here without worrying about being drowned out. You can tell us, okay, now the robot's going to head over toward the pull-up bar, or he's going to go use the row machine or something like that. And that'll just give us some idea of what's going on. Okay? Try to avoid blocking the camera's view of the field, including the red flip line, the models, and especially the robot. The technicians, of course, can interrupt the robot as needed, but obviously you want to do that as fast as you can because the clock is still ticking. And keep recording. That's our message. Let's see. When you stop the robot, either because you've finished everything you're going to do, tell us we're all done now, and we'll know that that's not an interruption, that's just a stop. Or if the match is over, you can say the match is over. We should all know that by then. And then as we go through the after-match videoing, think about what the referee would be doing if he or she were scoring the match with you on the score sheet. You'd all be looking at each of the mission models one at a time to see what their condition was and going through those. So we'd like your video to go ahead and look at each of the mission models where you think you've earned points at least and show it. Go ahead and zoom in on that and show that and tell us what you see. Okay? So if the bench is down, great. And if 3 of the hopscotch spaces are filled, tell us that that's what you see. And that'll help us make sure that we're seeing exactly what you think, exactly what you're seeing. Last year's game, if you were contestants last year, there was lots of confusing counting with all the different stacks that we had. We don't have anything quite like that this year, so it'll be a lot simpler. But so put in some questions. If you don't have a competition table available to film on, then that's okay. First, plans to put out some instructions that'll tell you, put your mat on your floor or whatever horizontal surface you want to. Use some tape to mark out where home is. Okay. And we've got dimensions there for that. And that's fine. If you want to film in multiple locations, that's fine too. You can film each match in a different place with a different robot controller or not. Whatever works for your team. Any individual match, of course, needs to be filmed in one location. But you can have other team members viewing via video as well if they want to be present to cheer or whatever during that match. If you have a question about your robot score on the day of the event, you can reach out to your event head referee to seek clarification. I assume that's going to be done through the remote event hub, about which we'll talk more later. And the shared mission, M08, Boccia. So if you want to do the shared mission, update 1 talks explicitly about what happens here. Since you don't have an opponent, if you take the share model and launch one of the cubes over the wall, over the north wall, and only one of the cubes over the north wall, then you'll be able to earn the 25 points for sharing colored cubes. You won't get any credit for the other team having sent a cube over into your scoring area, but this is a compromised position that first is taken on for everyone. So it should work out well, I think, for everyone. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Steve. I'm sure we have some questions. Karen, do you see anything coming through?
Yep. So how can we verify the robot game scores during the day?
We will be posting them on the leaderboard, and that will be either within the remote event hub or separately, and your tournament director should be able to advise you about that availability in advance of the tournament.
And then certainly if you do have a disagreement with a score, you don't understand something, you'll have the opportunity to reach out to your tournament's head referee to clarify.
Correct.
Can coaches, okay, go ahead.
I was to say, and you won't see, like in a normal tournament, you won't see your score sheet until after. So if you do have a question, you can ask the head ref to look at that. We'll have a specific set of guidelines to do that. And just like in an in-person event, you will receive that score sheet after the event. So just know that.
Can coaches and adults record, or does it have to be done by the kids?
We're happy to have an adult videographer. We know that that's a position that a lot of coaches and parents have done in the past, and that'll work fine for us.
I think that question probably also applies to judging.
It probably does. In fact, it's probably quite appropriate for a non-team member to be doing the recording during your project presentation.
Perfect.
Since all your team members will want to be on tape or on the video.
That works.
Okay, do we have to submit the robot game twice, one 17 days before and one on the day of competition, or just one time?
We're offering the one 17 days before is a practice round. It's not going to count for any points. It's to allow you to practice videoing your robot run and for the referees to have a chance to comment on that for you, to say, either we see your robot is sticking over the south wall when it launches, and that's not allowed, or that your video was unclear to us when you showed this. So here's what we would like. Here's what we suggest you work on for your official rounds. So that's just a chance to get some feedback from the referees. You can even ask questions there, I guess, and we can respond to questions there, as well as through the mailing distribution list, which is a more typical format.
And just to know, you are submitting 3 robot game separate videos. That is important that they're different videos because, yes, we want to see a robot round, but we also want to see consistency across your robot. And by having 3 matches, it gives you the chance to try different things, to see some of that consistency. So you will be submitting 3 separate robot game rounds officially.
And those will be submitted 5 days before, no later than 5 days before your event. They will not be submitted on the game, on your tournament day. And Caitlin, I'm just going to give you a heads up. There is a question from a newer coach just asking for some kind of 101 information on all of this. Probably something to do off the webinar.
Absolutely. I'll follow up in the Q&A section when I download the comments later tonight.
Yeah, so the coach who included that will reach out to you separately.
Awesome.
For the live events, the kids have a chance to talk with the rep regarding competition or completion of the missions, i.e. sign the sheet. Will there be a chance in the virtual game to review the missions with the ref before the sheet is signed? I think we've already kind of talked about that a little bit, but you want to add anything else, Steve?
Yeah, we don't see a possibility to actually have that happen, which is why having you tell us what you see on the field during the post-game part of the video is very helpful, because then we can get direct acknowledgement. And if there's something we might have been going to miss, then you'll be able to point it out to us and we'll see it.
And then certainly if you guys come up with your own score and it's different than the score that the referees give you, please reach out to the tournament's head referee during the day of the event. And discuss that, because it may be something where the team misunderstands something, or it may have been something that the referees didn't see. So that's going to be kind of that opportunity to deal with any discrepancies between what the team thinks they did and what the referees think they did. So there's a question about, let's see, we just moved there. Can you advise how to tape the mat down on the table? I think we'll probably cover that in some how-tos and descriptions on the actual details of doing a match. Probably not cover that here.
Yeah, there's some description of that in the field setup area. but we can answer that separately or on the mail list.
Yeah, there's also a question about limitations on how long or wide your robot has to be like last year, and I would just recommend please look at the rules. A lot of that stuff is covered in the rules.
It needs to fit in an inspection area for the inspection, and it needs to fit in the launch area in order to launch.
Do all 3 videos have to be recorded on the same day and or back to back?
So they definitely don't have to be recorded back to back. First originally put out some guidance that indicated they were going to ask everyone to do them on the same day. That's not so important to me. So pick 3 videos that show your robot off. And they don't all have to be perfect, but you'll earn points for the highest score no matter what.
Does the video for the robot game need to be 5 minutes or less, or can it be more?
It's probably going to be about 5 minutes because that's the amount of time that we allow nominally at the table to interact with the teams. So there'll be a little bit of prep with the inspection and waiting for your countdown. And then we'll have our 2.5 minutes straight of running the robot. And then after that, there'll be a walkthrough of what's going on the field. So I'm expecting them to be about 5 minutes. If we get to 35 minutes or more, the referees might stop watching. I don't know. There shouldn't be any natural content there for us to look at.
Okay, I think there was a question about how to score the shared missions, but we already covered that in the slides. Will a printable scoring sheet be provided so that we can just go down in the order the referee?
Is anyone able to hear me?
And just to kind of elaborate that on that some more, if you go back and look in the field setup information and the challenge information, it actually shows you kind of how to build a competition table, but that's not going to be necessarily something that everybody can have in their houses. Most of us don't have room to have that in our house, so we completely understand. And we've seen a couple of questions about being able to rewatch this, replay, no pun intended. This webinar will be posted to the website so that y'all can come back and watch this at any point.
Okay, and I know that it is 8 o'clock. We only have a few more slides, so if you could hang tight with us, we'll be finishing up shortly. And if we didn't get to your question, you can keep them coming. We're here to answer them, but we will be wrapping up really shortly. So, Karen, would you like to talk about awards and activities throughout the day?
Yep. So throughout the day, during your tournament, teams are going to be able to find out the robot game scores. We will be posting those throughout the tournament. They will not all show up at the same time necessarily. We'll try to post them as the referees review them. And then certainly if you do, as we've discussed it, if you do have a disagreement with the score that you're seeing versus what you think you should have, please reach out to the head referee for your tournament so that you guys can discuss that and it can be adjusted if necessary. Still a little bit to be determined. We're working on providing some fun activities and ways for teams to interact with each other. We want to be able to kind of create a virtual pit area so that teams are still getting that really great interaction with each other where they learn so much from each other, whether it's project or robot or whatever it might be. Awards are going to be very similar to all previous seasons. We will still at closing ceremony be recognizing the teams. It will just be remote, so think of it as a remote parade of teams. This is why it's really helpful to us if you can submit a team picture. That's very helpful. All as normal, all team members will receive participation ribbons. These will be either mailed to the coach or delivered depending on the local conditions. This is another reason why it's really, really important for you to make sure all of your team members are registered. If you do not register all of them, you may be in a very awkward position of having to figure out which 3 kids on your team when there are 10 kids get ribbons. So please register all members of your team. And then we will be giving the standard awards trophies for teams that earn them. Again, they'll be either mailed or delivered depending on the local situation. So how to prepare your team. Most importantly, this has been a challenging year for everyone. This is a new experience for everyone. It's a new experience for you guys. It's also very much a new experience for us in running tournaments like this. So, just take a moment, first of all, and celebrate the work that they have done during this unprecedented season and these unprecedented last, 8-9 months now. So, please take that moment and congratulate them for what they've done. We do recommend you hold practice judging sessions with the teams. First and foremost, it's a great way for the kids to get comfortable with answering questions and being asked questions in that remote environment. It's also a great opportunity for all those parents who always complain they never get to see what the kids are doing in judging because we don't let everybody into judging. This is a way for them to actually get to see that judging. Let them actually be the judges, and it's a great practice for the kids. Again, we strongly recommend that you submit a practice match. The team will get feedback, even if it's not their complete, if they're not ready, that's fine. Even if it's just a few missions, it's better than nothing. And it also lets us kind of look at if there are any filming related issues that we might want to address as well to make the robot rounds for the competition go a little bit better. And then you'll need to work to get the parents and guardians to complete the online youth registration, which will include your consent and release form. So we put together kind of a quick little coaches checklist. This certainly doesn't necessarily cover everything, but kind of some of the big picture things that you'll want to do. So before the event, you'll want to make sure you register for a tournament. That would need to be before midnight on Thursday night. Ensure all of your team members are registered with the First Inspires account and have their consent forms done. When you get the invitation for the remote event hub, you'll need to accept that and register with that. Again, those won't come till sometime around the new year. So don't worry, you should not have one yet. Hopefully you'll submit a practice match. You'll need to submit your 3 official matches, your project video, a robot run for the judging. And again, that robot run can absolutely be one of the 3 that you're submitting for the official matches. So don't feel like you need to have a 4th one ready to go. And then submitting your team information sheet and a team picture. During the event, we will have a coaches meeting first thing in the morning, just like at a normal in-person event. So we strongly recommend the coaches attend that. We'll do an opening ceremony. Again, remote opening ceremony. Teams will participate in judging sessions that will be their judging session will be scheduled at some point during the day. You'll get a schedule through the remote event hub. You'll be able to watch the robot scores posting throughout the day. And if you do have any disagreements, misunderstandings, things like that, notify the head referee to discuss if necessary. You'll be able to watch the closing ceremony, and most importantly, we encourage you to congratulate your team for an awesome job in a tough year. And then after the event, you will receive your score sheets and judging rubrics via email. We'll be able to get those to you through the remote hub. You'll receive ribbons, and if you earned one, trophies by mail or in person, depending on your area. And then take pride in all your team accomplished this uniquely challenging environment. And if you did qualify to move on to the championship, start preparing to move on to the championship.
So at this point, that is all that we have. Next steps, make sure that you have submitted your tournament preferences. As Karen said, you have 2 more days to do that. Please do it by December 10th at midnight. You can view the status of your payment and your preferences in the team manager account. By December 15th, we will be assigning you to your team. And around that time, you should expect to see a little bit more of all this put together for you. Karen and I are going to try to put this together and send it out in a way that we know that's a lot of new stuff, but we're trying to put it together in a way that's going to be nice and concise for you. After January 1st, look for an email inviting you to the remote hub. Remember, everything we talked about tonight can be found at VA+DCFLL.org. You'll see this graphic on the homepage. You click there, takes you over to our tournament guidelines. And again, I started this way, but I really cannot say thank you enough. I know that everybody here is a volunteer. You embarked on this mission not really knowing what the end game was, and we really, really appreciate you giving your time and your energy because our kids still deserve opportunities like this, and they still deserve these experiences, even if they're going to look differently. So I really appreciate all the open-mindedness of some of the information we presented to you. It's still all getting worked out, but we hope to make it as smooth as possible for you. At this point, we have gone past our time. Karen, are there any big pressing questions we want to end with, or do you think we've got it for now? I mean, there are a lot of people I know I'm going to follow up with afterwards. So.
Let's see here. The only other additional question I'm seeing right now is, and my questions just disappeared, is a question about what we're going to do, what needs to be submitted for a robot run. And again, we will have information up on the website, kind of the best practices, what to do for a robot, what to include in a robot run, what not. But this is actually your 2.5-minute competition round. So for new coaches who may not be familiar with this, this is the actual what you would have done in person on the competition table at the tournament. You're just doing it by yourself with just your team at whatever your remote location is. The other comment I just saw is, when does payment need to be in? Ideally, payment needs to be in by midnight on the 10th. If that's going to be an issue for you, please just reach out to Caitlin. And as long as, we know something's being worked, we understand that sometimes,